Mortgage rates crept up slightly last week, and mortgage applications actually dropped 10%. Here with us now is Doug Flynn, certified financial planner and co-founder of Flynn Zito Capital Management. Good to see you again, Doug. All right, so I got to ask you about this whole business with Jerome Powell. I want to circle back to what Peter Navarro's comments about the Federal Reserve. You know, how could the growing rift between the Trump administration and the Fed impact the American economy? We heard a lot today on that.
Yes, basically, if you really look at this, rates are too high in the U.S. So, and people are starting to come around to that fact. And you can argue whether it's a half a point too high or 3/4 of a point too high, but there are a number of reasons why that's the case. And you know, when you have a situation where the Fed has been wrong before, like when they said early on when inflation spiked up that inflation was just going to be transitory, and it wasn't. And then you had that drop in interest rates right before the election. Without necessarily regard to applying the same rules today, you could see why people would think this is politicized. And as much as they say they're not political, the actions kind of speak a little bit differently. And that's because rates are too high relative to the inflation. And they started bringing in things like, well, we think tariffs are going to increase inflation. And they don't normally speak like that. They normally just talk about data. And the data's not there yet to say that inflation's picking up because of tariffs. And so you can't argue that they should be as high as they are, and yet they keep them where they are. So that's where a lot of this is holding us back from making the economy even stronger than it could be.
Do you think that that confuses the American people? Do you think that when people hear that, they give pause?
I think that how it affects the American people is that they're just paying more for, everything. Mortgages, they're paying more for credit card rates and borrowing, cars and everything that they're doing. And so that's slowing down the economy in actuality. And you get that if you're growing too fast, that's one thing. Or if you need to, that's not the case. And so I think people are feeling it. And so where it's showing up is in the fact that, rents have become so high, housing has become unaffordable, partly because rates are too high. Although the Fed doesn't directly impact mortgage rates, they indirectly do. And so there is an impact there on a lot of things. And so I think that's where people are feeling it. Okay. And so you're starting to wonder why rates are where they are when they should be lower.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about the housing market because we want to get back into that. And in addition to what you just mentioned, what other factors are driving down mortgage applications? Because we're hearing that they are down a lot.
Yeah, it's a combination, the classic combination of all-time high prices in nearly all places around the country and extremely high interest rates. When interest rates are bumping up again near 7% and you have all-time high prices, the affordability, especially for the young people, the average age of a new homeowner is into the high 40s and almost 50 years old. Like, the young people cannot buy homes. And so one of two things has to give, and you don't necessarily want the prices to give. No, nobody really wants that. But what could give, again, are the interest rates. If interest rates drop, it makes those houses much more affordable, and you start to create activity. Activity is just slowing down, and so the economy could be moving more and more action could happen, more money would move around if rates are lower, and so that's where the impact is for most people.
I was going to ask you about the trade wars influencing the housing market as well, because we've got the inflation, we've got the rates, we've got those concerns, but what about the trade wars?
Yeah, I mean, trade wars can raise costs, and so while it's starting to trickle in, and companies are saying they're going to raise the cost because of tariffs, but it hasn't really impacted yet partly because the numbers keep moving. What percentage are these countries going to pay? How much of an impact does it have on everything? A lot of companies have sort of moved their purchases ahead to get ahead of the tariffs. So we're not really seeing the full impact of that. There is going to be some impact if we don't get deals across the board. But those deals are slowly coming. We need to see more deals, and so we can kind of put that on the back burner and not worry so much about it. But that's out there, no question about it. That down the road we could see a bigger impact from the trade wars and the tariffs if they come through.
All right. Well, I've got to ask you about another industry impact by President Trump's tariffs. More families than ever are already shopping for school. I can't believe it. I went to Target the other day and they had backpacks and crayons, and I said, wait a minute, we just started summer. But that's, a lot of people feel that way, citing concerns over inflation and Trump's aggressive trade policy. So, when we take a look at how that is going, schooling. How can getting an early start help families budget their back-to-school spending? I mean, I don't want to think about it. I want to talk about, buying inner tubes and coolers right now, but people are buying their school supplies.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see that the back-to-school season is the second biggest retail event after the holidays. That's how big it is, but it does creep up on you. And so the interesting thing here is that about 2/3 of people, parents that is, have started their back-to-school shopping, where in the past that's normally about 50% of the people. So people are starting to do it a little bit earlier. And I think that's really wise, because if some of these tariffs impact, a lot of this stuff is coming from overseas that they're buying, that can raise the prices down the road. So you get a little bit ahead of it, maybe save a little bit of money. They're doing everything they can to keep the costs down. But I think getting out there and getting it done early is a wise thing on multiple fronts.
On multiple fronts. We all, when we get that list at the beginning of the year, like, we haven't done it yet. So now's the time. All right, Doug Flynn, thank you very much.